The grand chamber of the Galactic Council sparkled under the light of 3 artificial suns. Floating platforms carried representatives from over 200 species, all arranged in sweeping tiers that rose toward the crystal dome above. The air hummed with translator devices and quiet murmurs as council member first speaker stood at the central podium. Ambassador James Walker sat alone at the human platform, his weathered face calm despite the growing tension in the chamber. He wore the simple black uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, adorned only with a silver pin showing clasped hands beneath a star. The evidence against humanity cannot be ignored any longer. First speaker's voice boomed across the chamber. The tall, blue-skinned alien's 4 arms gestured at the hovering displays around him. Look at their history. Centuries of constant warfare. Their entertainment celebrates violence. Their children play at combat. Even now, 70% of their global resources go to military spending. Images flashed across the screens. Ancient battles, modern wars, military parades, and action movies. Walker noticed how carefully they had been chosen, showing humanity at its most aggressive while conveniently ignoring context. Since joining the galactic community, humans have participated in 16 different peacekeeping operations, a reptilian council member hissed. They call it peacekeeping, but they seem suspiciously eager to deploy their warships. Walker kept taking notes, his stylus moving steadily across his datapad. Around him, more council members joined the chorus of criticism. Their ships are too heavily armed for a peaceful species. They train their young in combat from an early age. Their history books glorify warriors. First speaker raised all 4 hands for silence. We must consider whether humanity's inclusion in the Galactic Council was premature. Perhaps they need another century of observation before they can be trusted with interstellar travel rights. That brought a wave of agreeing sounds from various species. Walker noticed which members stayed silent, mentally noting potential allies. I move that we begin proceedings to suspend Earth's Council membership, called out Ambassador Reed, a tall insectoid whose species had long opposed human inclusion, until they can prove they have moved beyond their violent nature. In the public gallery above, reporters from 100 worlds recorded everything. Walker could already imagine the headlines across the galaxy. Humans too violent for civilized space. First speaker turned to the human platform. Ambassador Walker, do you wish to speak in your species' defense? Walker stood slowly, his movements deliberate. At 63, he was considered young for an ambassador, but his hair had gone gray early. He touched the scar on his left cheek, a reminder of his past as a combat medic. I request time to prepare a full response, he said, his voice clear and calm. The accusations against my species are serious. They deserve a serious answer. You have 3 planetary rotations to prepare your defense, first speaker announced. After that, the Council will vote on Earth's membership status. Walker bowed slightly. Thank you, first speaker. I would also request access to the Council's complete military intervention records for the past standard decade. That caused a stir. Several members shifted uncomfortably on their platforms. For what purpose? First speaker asked. To provide proper context for humanity's peacekeeping activities, Walker replied. After all, we cannot examine human military actions in isolation. First speaker consulted briefly with other council members before nodding. Granted. But know this, Ambassador Walker. If your defense fails to convince this council, humanity may find itself cut off from galactic trade routes and restricted to their solar system. I understand completely, Walker said, gathering his materials. As he turned to leave the chamber, he caught sight of Ambassador Reed talking urgently with several other council members. They looked worried. Walker allowed himself a small smile as he walked out. They had no idea what was coming. After all, if there was one thing humans understood better than war, it was justice, and he had 3 days to show the galaxy the difference between loving war and being willing to fight for peace. The council session ended with murmurs of concern echoing through the chamber. The fate of humanity's place among the stars now rested on one man's ability to shake the Council's foundations with truth. 50 years before the Council hearing, humanity had its first contact with alien life in a way no one expected. It wasn't through radio signals or a ship landing on Earth. Instead, humans witnessed a space battle above their planet between two alien forces. Walker, just a young medical student then, remembered watching the news footage. A massive warship had been attacking a smaller vessel carrying refugees. Without hesitation, Earth's combined military forces had launched to defend the weaker ship, despite having no idea about either side's identity or capabilities. The smaller ship belonged to the Wanderers, a peaceful species fleeing from the Empire's expansion. That day changed everything. Humanity proved itself by choosing to protect strangers without questioning who they were or what they could offer in return. In his temporary quarters on the Council station, Walker reviewed these historical records. The holograms showed Earth's first diplomatic team meeting the Wanderers. His father had been among them, standing proud in his medic uniform as they welcomed the refugees to Earth. "Computer, show me the development phase," Walker commanded. New images appeared. Earth scientists working alongside alien engineers, combining human creativity with advanced technology. Humans had surprised the galactic community by focusing first on medical and agricultural advances rather than weapons. The records showed the first joint human-alien hospital being built in Africa. Walker smiled, remembering his residency there. Human doctors had proven especially skilled at treating alien patients. Their experience with Earth's diverse biology made them adaptable. But not everything had been peaceful. Within 5 years of first contact, humanity faced its first real test. The same empire that had chased the Wanderers attacked 3 developing worlds near Earth's space. The footage showed what happened next. Human ships, still primitive by galactic standards, launched to defend the planets. They used creative tactics no one expected, converting cargo ships into makeshift carriers, using Earth's old missile technology in ways that confused advanced shields, and most importantly, focusing on evacuating civilians before engaging in combat. Walker paused the replay, zooming in on a particular scene. A human transport pilot had crashed his ship deliberately to block an enemy bombardment, saving thousands of refugees. The pilot survived, barely. It was Walker himself. "Computer, shows civilian casualty comparisons." Numbers filled the air. In previous conflicts, the Empire had typically killed 30 to 40% of planetary populations during invasions. During the battles where humans helped with defense and evacuation, civilian casualties dropped to less than 5%. The data continued scrolling. Human emergency response teams had developed new protocols for protecting civilian populations. Their combat medics went through both military and medical training. Even their warships carried large medical bays and refugee facilities. Walker walked to the window, looking out at the massive Council station. Most species built their military and defensive capabilities first, then developed humanitarian services later. Humans had done both simultaneously, creating an interesting hybrid approach that many found disturbing. More records played behind him. The founding of the Earth Relief Corps, which now operated throughout known space. The development of shield technology specifically designed to protect civilian shelters. The creation of the Space Rescue Service, which saved stranded ships regardless of their species or allegiance. "Computer, show me current deployment statistics." The numbers were clear. 70% of Earth's space fleet was indeed dedicated to military purposes. But those same ships spent most of their time on rescue missions, humanitarian aid delivery, and protecting civilian transport routes from pirates. Walker began making notes for his defense. The Council wasn't wrong about humanity's capacity for violence. They were wrong about why humans maintained that capacity. History showed a clear pattern. Humans used their military strength primarily to protect others. He touched his old crash injury, remembering the faces of the people he'd helped save that day. The Council thought humans loved war because they were good at it. They didn't understand that humans were good at war precisely because they hated it. They had studied it, prepared for it, and mastered it specifically to prevent it where possible and end it quickly when necessary. Now he just had to make them understand that truth. The council chamber fell silent as Walker took the central podium. 3 days of preparation had led to this moment. The floating platforms around him were packed with representatives from across the galaxy, all waiting to hear humanity's defense. Honorable council members, Walker began, his voice steady and clear. I won't deny humanity's violent history. Yes, we have fought wars. Yes, we understand combat. Yes, we maintain powerful military forces. He paused, letting the words sink in. But let me show you something you haven't seen. With a gesture, he activated the chamber's holographic system. The space above filled with images, but not of battles or warships. Instead, it showed human rescue workers pulling alien children from a collapsed building on Colony World 7. This was 3 months ago, Walker continued. When the quake hit, human ships were the first to respond. Not because we had to, but because we could. The images changed. Now they showed human doctors treating wounded aliens in a field hospital. This is from the border conflict last year. Human medical teams treated both sides equally. We don't ask what faction someone belongs to when they're bleeding. Murmurs spread through the chamber. Walker noticed several council members leaning forward, their attention caught. You say we spend too much on our military. Let me show you what that money really buys. New holograms appeared. Massive transport ships converted into mobile hospitals, warships escorting refugee convoys, soldiers building shelters on disaster-struck worlds. Every human military vessel is required by our laws to dedicate at least 30% of its space to medical facilities and refugee accommodation. Every human soldier is trained in emergency medical care and civilian evacuation procedures. Our combat pilots spend more time running rescue missions than fighting. Ambassador Reed chittered from his platform. Pretty pictures don't change the fact that humans are too eager to fight. Walker smiled. Computer, display case file 147B. The holograms shifted to show a battle scene. Human ships were engaging larger vessels that were attacking the civilian transport. This is from last year's pirate attacks in the Outer Rim. Those civilian ships belong to your species, Ambassador Reed. When they called for help, 3 human patrol ships responded. 2 of our pilots died protecting your people. Reed fell silent. Walker continued, his voice growing stronger. You say we love war. No, we understand war. We know its cost better than most. That's why we fight so hard to prevent it. That's why we maintain our strength, not to start conflicts, but to end them. The chamber's displays now showed statistics. Numbers of lives saved, refugees protected, disasters prevented. In the 50 years since we joined the Galactic community, human forces have participated in over 200 humanitarian missions. We've evacuated 16 worlds threatened by natural disasters. Our medical ships have treated patients from every species represented in this chamber. First speaker leaned forward. Yet you still train your young for combat. You maintain weapon development programs. We do, Walker acknowledged, because we've learned that the universe isn't always kind. Sometimes protecting peace means being ready to fight for it. But look at how we actually use our capabilities. New images appeared. Human soldiers teaching alien children to read, military engineers building schools, warships delivering food and medical supplies to worlds in crisis. We don't love war, honored council. We love life. We love justice. We love helping those who can't help themselves. And yes, sometimes that means fighting. But if you look at our actions rather than our capabilities, you'll see that humanity has consistently chosen to use its strength to protect, not to destroy. Walker straightened, looking around the chamber. I have more evidence to present. But first, I think it's time we discussed something else. Specifically, why certain council members seem so eager to remove humanity's ability to interfere with their private business enterprises. The chamber erupted in shocked whispers. Several council members suddenly looked very uncomfortable. Walker's evidence was just beginning, and already he could see the tide turning. The council chamber's atmosphere grew tense as Walker activated his next set of holograms. They showed a different kind of battle scene, one where human soldiers formed living shields around alien civilians, taking fire while evacuating them to safety. "These images are from the mining colony crisis," Walker said, his voice cutting through the silence. "Humans died that day. Not for glory, not for territory, but to protect innocent lives." He touched a control, and the scene froze on a particular moment. A human soldier carrying 2 alien children, while plasma fire scorched the air around them. "That soldier didn't survive," Walker continued. "His name was Tom Miller. He was 24 years old. His last words were asking if the children were safe." The chamber was completely silent now. They were safe. And that, honored council, is what humans choose to do with our understanding of warfare. New data streams appeared in the air. In the past decade, human peacekeeping forces have suffered casualties in 67% of their missions. Why? Because our standard protocol prioritizes civilian safety above our own. Walker brought up another set of statistics. "We've lost 8,000 personnel in humanitarian operations, not in battles for territory or resources, but in rescue missions, evacuation operations, and disaster response. When that mining colony was collapsing, human engineers stayed behind to shore up critical supports, buying time for others to escape. 15 of them never made it out." First speaker raised a hand. "These sacrifices are noble, but they don't explain humanity's continued military expansion, don't they?" Walker asked. He gestured, and the hologram showed Earth's shipyards. "Look closely at our newest vessels. Every warship we build has more medical bays than weapon systems. Our cargo capacity is primarily dedicated to relief supplies. We build strong ships because we go where others won't, into war zones, natural disasters, and cosmic storms." The displays shifted to show human training facilities. "You criticize how we train our young for combat. Watch what that training actually involves." The scenes showed human soldiers learning emergency medicine, practicing evacuation procedures, studying alien physiology for better medical response. "Yes, we teach them to fight," Walker acknowledged. "But more importantly, we teach them when not to fight. We teach them that strength exists to protect the weak. That power comes with responsibility." He brought up more mission logs. Last year, human forces responded to 312 distress calls. Only 42 of those situations required combat. The rest were rescue operations, medical emergencies, and disaster response. Our soldiers spent more time building hospitals than manning weapons. Ambassador Reed shifted uncomfortably. Yet humans still maintain the largest emergency response fleet in known space. Such resources could be better used elsewhere. Walker smiled. "Computer, display emergency response statistics. Last 5 years." Numbers filled the air. 40% of those emergency calls came from your own colonies, Ambassador. When your world suffered that devastating plague 2 years ago, who operated the quarantine lines? Who staffed the emergency medical stations? Who developed the cure? The insectoid ambassador fell silent again. Walker continued, his voice growing passionate. "We maintain our fleet because someone has to. Because when disasters strike, when pirates attack civilian ships, when colonies face crisis, someone needs to be ready to help. Not after committees debate, not after politics play out, but immediately." He brought up one final image, Earth, seen from space. "This is what we learned from our own history. Our world nearly destroyed itself multiple times. We survived because enough people chose to help instead of hurt, to protect instead of destroy. We don't celebrate war. We remember its lessons." Walker looked around the chamber, meeting alien gazes one by one. "Humanity isn't perfect. We make mistakes. We struggle with our capacity for violence. But we choose, again and again, to use our strength in service of others. That's not loving war. That's loving life enough to fight for it." The chamber remained quiet, but Walker could see thoughtful expressions on many faces. His next revelations would shake them even more. But first, they needed to understand this fundamental truth about human nature. Walker's expression hardened as he activated his next set of evidence. Now, honored council, let's discuss why certain members are so eager to remove humanity from galactic affairs. The holograms shifted to show trade routes and financial transactions. These records were difficult to obtain. Someone went to great lengths to hide them. He highlighted several streams of data, but they tell an interesting story. Ambassador. First speaker interjected, "If you are making accusations, I'm presenting facts." Walker cut in firmly. Computer, display transaction set alpha. The chamber filled with new information. Weapon shipments, hidden bank transfers, secret meetings. 6 council members have been selling advanced weapons to both sides in regional conflicts. They've been profiting from wars while publicly condemning violence. Angry shouts erupted from several platforms. Walker raised his voice over the chaos. The Outer Rim conflicts didn't start naturally. They were engineered. Certain parties armed both sides, encouraged disputes, then sold more weapons when fighting broke out. He brought up more evidence. What really bothers these council members isn't humanity's capacity for violence. It's our habit of stopping conflicts before they can become profitable. The holograms showed human peacekeepers intercepting illegal weapon shipments, protecting civilian targets, and mediating disputes before they turn violent. Every war we prevent costs these weapons dealers billions in lost sales. Every peace treaty we help negotiate cuts into their profit margins. Ambassador Reed stood up. These are baseless accusations. Are they? Walker touched another control. Reed's own financial records appeared in the air. Would you like to explain these transactions to the council, or shall I detail exactly how much you made from the border wars? The chamber erupted in shocked whispers as Reed sank back into his seat. Walker continued relentlessly. Humanity's real crime isn't loving war. It's disrupting a very profitable business model. Every time we respond to a distress call, every time we protect civilian ships, every time we help negotiate peace, someone loses money. He brought up more data. These council members have been pushing for humanity's isolation for years. Not because we're dangerous, but because we're effective. We've cut their war profiteering by 60% since we joined the galactic community. First speaker's color had changed to a deeper blue. These are serious allegations, Ambassador Walker. They're documented facts, Walker corrected. The same members who claim humans are too violent have been secretly fueling conflicts across known space. They've armed pirates, funded insurgencies, and blocked peace negotiations. The holograms now showed refugee camps and ruined colonies. This is the real cost of their profits. While they sat in comfortable chambers condemning humanity's military strength, they were selling weapons that destroyed worlds. Walker's voice grew quiet, but every word carried through the chamber. You want to know why humans maintain our military? This is why. Because we've seen what happens when good people aren't strong enough to stop the greedy and the cruel. He brought up one final set of images. Human ships delivering aid to worlds devastated by the very weapons these council members had sold. We don't love war. We hate what it does to innocent people, and we've learned that sometimes the only way to prevent war is to be strong enough to stop those who profit from it. The chamber had fallen completely silent. Several council members were quietly consulting their own data screens, verifying Walker's evidence. Others sat in shocked silence as decades of secret dealings were exposed. I have more evidence, Walker said calmly, including records of bribe payments, hidden weapon factories, and coordinated efforts to start conflicts. I'm happy to share all of it with the full council. First speaker looked around the chamber, noting how many members suddenly seemed very interested in examining their own platforms. I believe, Ambassador Walker, that the council will need time to digest this information. Walker nodded. Of course. And while you consider it, remember this: humanity doesn't love war. We just love justice more than some people love profit. The chamber remained silent, but the balance of power had shifted. The accusers had become the accused, and humanity's true role in galactic peace was becoming clear. After Walker's revelations, the council chamber buzzed with a different kind of energy. One by one, representatives from smaller worlds began requesting permission to speak. First speaker, still visibly shaken by the earlier evidence, granted their requests. The ambassador from the Green Worlds stood first. I wish to share something with the council. The holographic displays activated, showing a devastated cityscape. 3 years ago, our capital was hit by a tsunami. Our own ships couldn't reach the coastal cities in time. The image changed to show human rescue ships arriving through the storm. Earth's emergency response fleet came without being asked. They saved 2 million of our people. More representatives began sharing their stories. The Mountain Clan spokesperson displayed footage of human engineers working to contain a reactor breach that threatened their underground cities. The Desert Coalition showed images of human water purification teams working through a drought crisis. Walker stood quietly at his podium, letting their testimonies build. The very species that had been silent during his accusation now spoke in humanity's defense. Humans protected our medical transports when pirates attacked, called out a representative from the ring systems. They didn't ask for payment. They didn't demand treaties. They just helped because they could. The holograms now filled with dozens of similar scenes. Human ships escorting civilian convoys. Human medical teams treating alien wounded. Human soldiers evacuating threatened colonies. Ambassador Reed tried to interrupt. These isolated incidents don't. Isolated. A new voice cut through the chamber. The Star Nomad's elder rose on her platform. Let me show you something, Council. She transmitted new data to the central display. These are patrol records from the Outer Rim. Human ships run regular protection missions there, guarding trade routes that aren't even in their territory. Without them, smaller worlds like ours couldn't safely transport goods or travel between systems. More data poured in as other members shared their records. A pattern emerged. Human forces had been quietly supporting and protecting numerous species, often without recognition or reward. Look at their response times, the Technology Union's representative noted, highlighting statistics. When emergencies occur, human ships arrive faster than any other force in known space. They don't wait for political clearance or payment guarantees. They just come. First speaker raised all 4 hands for attention. These testimonies are compelling, but they don't address the core concern about human military capacity. Don't they? The Conservation World's ambassador stood. Look at how they use that capacity. New footage played. Human warships positioning themselves between civilian targets and attacking forces, taking damage to protect others. They build strong ships because they choose to fight the battles others won't. They maintain powerful weapons because someone needs to stand against those who prey on the weak. Walker finally spoke again. Computer, display civilian casualty statistics for all military interventions in the past decade. Compare human-led peacekeeping operations with others. The numbers appeared, stark and clear. In conflicts where humans led the response, civilian casualties dropped by nearly 80% compared to other interventions. This is why we maintain our strength, Walker explained quietly. Not because we love war, but because we've learned what it takes to protect peace. The chamber's atmosphere had transformed. The accusers had fallen silent, while previously quiet members now spoke up about their experiences with humanity. They taught us disaster response protocols. They helped us build our own defense systems. Their medical technology has saved millions. First speakers studied the flood of evidence and testimony. It seems, Ambassador Walker, that humanity's influence on galactic affairs is more complex than initially presented. Walker nodded. We don't ask for recognition. We don't demand praise. We simply do what we believe is right. If that means being strong enough to fight, we accept that responsibility. If it means being willing to die protecting others, we accept that too. The chamber fell quiet again. But this time the silence held respect rather than accusation. The truth about humanity's role in the galaxy had been revealed, not just through Walker's evidence, but through the voices of those they had helped. The balance had shifted. Now it was time for his final proposal, one that would reshape galactic peacekeeping forever. As the final session of the council began, the chamber felt different. Gone was the hostile atmosphere from days before. Now there was a sense of anticipation as Walker took the podium one last time. Honored Council, he began, before you vote on Earth's membership, I have a proposal. He activated the holographic display, showing a new design for a ship. This is the Guardian-class vessel. It combines Earth's most advanced medical facilities with our defensive capabilities. We propose to build a fleet of these ships, not under human control alone, but as part of a new joint peacekeeping force. The design rotated in the air. A massive ship with clear medical bays, rescue craft bays, and defensive systems. Each ship would carry crews from multiple species, combining our different strengths. Human tactical experience with healer technology, mountain clan engineering with star nomad navigation skills. First speaker leaned forward. You propose this now, after all the accusations. Yes, Walker answered, because now we all understand the truth. The galaxy doesn't need fewer protectors. It needs more cooperation between those willing to protect others. He brought up a new display showing proposed patrol routes and response protocols. Imagine emergency ships that can reach any world within hours, not days. Imagine medical teams combining the knowledge of a dozen species. Imagine a force dedicated purely to preservation of life and peace. The chamber filled with quiet discussion as council members studied the proposal. Walker continued, Earth will provide the initial ships and training facilities. We'll share all our emergency response protocols, our medical technology, our defensive systems. But we don't want to lead this force. We want to be part of it. Ambassador Reed, surprisingly, spoke up. After exposing some of us as war profiteers, you still want cooperation. Yes, Walker said simply, because that's what humans do. We don't hold grudges when there's work to be done. We don't let past conflicts prevent future progress. He smiled slightly. Even those council members who opposed us are welcome to participate, under proper oversight, of course. First speaker called for order. It is time to vote. First, on the matter of Earth's continued council membership. The vote was displayed in real time. Support for Earth's membership climbed steadily. When the final tally appeared, the result was clear. Earth would remain in the council by an overwhelming majority. And now, first speaker continued, on Ambassador Walker's proposal for a joint peacekeeping force. Again, the votes appeared. Species after species voted in favor. Even some of those Walker had exposed supported the plan, perhaps seeing a chance for redemption. The proposal passes, first speaker announced. The Galactic Emergency Response Force will be established under joint control of all participating council members. Walker nodded in satisfaction, but he wasn't finished. There's one more thing. He touched his controls one final time. We've been developing these ships in secret for the past year. The first 12 Guardian-class vessels are ready for immediate deployment. Their crews, volunteers from 30 different species, have already completed training. The chamber erupted in surprised commentary. Walker raised his voice slightly. We believed in this idea enough to invest in it before asking permission. The ships and crews are ready. All they need is the Council's authorization to begin operations. First speaker's color shifted to pleased violet. You took quite a risk, Ambassador. That's what humans do, Walker replied. We don't just talk about helping others. We act. We plan. We prepare. And yes, sometimes we take risks in the name of doing what's right. The authorization was quickly granted. As the session ended, council members crowded around Walker, eager to discuss their species' participation in the new force. Walker looked up at the artificial stars shining through the chamber's dome. Humanity had been accused of loving war, but they had proved something different. They loved peace enough to fight for it, to die for it, and most importantly, to build something new to preserve it. The stars seemed brighter somehow, perhaps because now they would be watched over by those who truly understood the difference between the capacity for violence and the desire to protect. Humanity had shaken the stars not with war, but with hope.